PSU Bank Index gains over 3%, leading tech sectoral gains. Vodafone Idea throws the ball in the government's court, says it is in talks with the government on AGR dues. The telecom company shares hit upper circuit briefly after it secured a 30,000 crore rupee deal from global equipment suppliers. The biggest names from day one of the JPMorgan India Summit speak to NDTV Profit. CEO of APAC region, Sjord Lennart, says that India is the pillar of their Asia growth strategy. During his three-day visit to the US, Prime Minister Modi meets top tech leaders, including Google CEO Sundar Pichai, NVIDIA's Jensen Huang, and Adobe's Shantanu Narayan at the CEO's roundtable. The investigation report on the death of an EY employee can be expected in 10 days, says the Labour Minister Mansukh Mandavia. The FM Sitharaman calls for stress management lessons at institutions. Comparing herself to Bharat taking the reign when Ram went to Vanvas in the Mahabharat, Aam Aadmi Party leader Atishi takes charge as Delhi's chief minister and left the chair empty next to her in the honour of Arvind Kejriwal. Sri Lanka's first leftist president was sworn into office today. Anura Kumara Dissanayake of the People's Liberation Front, after a landslide victory, said that he had no magic solution to the hardships suffered from an economic crisis. Lapata Ladies has been chosen as India's official entry for the 2025 Oscars in the Best Foreign Film category. The film's director, Kiran Rao, said that she hopes that the film will resonate with the rest of the world. Good evening and welcome. You're watching Profit 360 on NDTV Profit, and I'm Nupur Talwar Suri. Well, the benchmarks touched fresh highs for the fourth straight session, with the Nifty ending only 80 points away from 26,000, closing at an all-time high for the second day in a row. Now, the Nifty companies added 1.27 lakh crore rupees to the market cap, and Harsh Saita is joining us with all the action.
Well, we chugged along fairly healthily towards the 26K mark, 0.5% higher on the Nifty 50. Let's pull up the heat map, see which stocks really moved the market today. And you'll see two-wheeler counters. Both Bajaj and Hero stood out. But outside of that, M&M within the auto pack did well. In the auto pack, Eicher Motors at the bottom of the pile on the Nifty 50. So the auto pack really having dominated in terms of the gainers and losers. When you're looking at some of the other names which did well, SBI Life, HDFC Life, life insurers, as well as SBI, 2.5% higher for all those three. Very, very strong day on all those three counters. You also had a Reliance chipping in, you had an HDFC Bank chipping in. Let's pull up the contributories and we'll see exactly that. Kotak Mahindra was up 1.7% as well, and HDFC and ICICI, the top gainer and top loser in terms of contributories on the Nifty 50. That's how it played out, along with IT stocks. Let's pull up the heat map on the sectoral indices, and we'll see that within the Nifty Bank, the Nifty PSU Bank has really done well today, 3.5% higher after the week it had last week. So clearly reversing some of that underperformance of last week, brushing it off, and the Nifty Private Bank not doing as well, and therefore the Nifty Bank landing up in that sweet spot, 0.5% or so higher, which supported the index. Along with that, of course, Realty did well in the broader markets. You had Nifty Pharma also up around 0.5% thereabouts. Let's pull up the broader markets. The Nifty Mid Cap as well as the Small Cap indices, both were up roughly 0.8 odd%. So good day on the broader markets as well that we saw. Let's pull up the advanced decline and thereafter the list of BSE 500 top gainers, top losers. There you go. That's the advanced decline, how it shaped up pretty much through the day, healthy in terms of how the market shaped up. And the BSE 500 gainers, losers, there you go. Some cigarette counters on that list, VST, Godfrey Phillips, were big movers on the negative side of things, whereas Amber Enterprises 15% higher on the back of that Jefferies note offering a 19% upside.
All right, now Vodafone Idea has thrown the ball in the government's court over AGR dues, which threaten to engulf its finances. Now, in an analyst con call, the company said that it is in talks with the government on AGR dues. Rucha is joining in with the key takeaways from the con call.
Most most important takeaways that I found out is the conversion of equity into debt of rupees 170 billion. And number two is tariff hike of similar level after 15 months cycle is what the management is assuming in. So these 2 points are most relevant assumptions of the management. Now moving on to the AGR dues case, which has been the talk of the town. Well, the company believes that now the talk is in the hands of the government and not the Supreme Court, and hence the company has initiated a fresh dialogue with the government, and they're also in the process of putting a new request to the government for considering the AGR dues case. Now, talking about the tariff hikes, as I mentioned, they said that the industry will need further tariff hikes, and they are factoring in a similar level of hike after 15 months. Now, talking about the cash flows, well, the cash flows generated by the business will be used towards the payment of government dues. The company has bank loans of about 48 billion, and the vendor overdues are, getting cleared. So not much of a bit from vendor overdues. But on the debt, they also mentioned that starting FY27, the total payout will be $430 billion annually. And out of that, 170 billion rupees will be, 430 billion rupees annually. And out of that, 170 billion rupees is the deferred series of installment, which the management is expecting to be converted into equity. And the balance will be the installment with which the company will pay out of the cash flow. Lastly, talking about 5G, well, it said that monetization of 5G is still not happening, but will be launching 5G in all the 17 priority circles.
All right, Richa, thank you very much for that. Now, Manba Finance's IPO was fully subscribed within an hour of opening for public subscription in the primary market. The IPO has been oversubscribed by over 18 times as of 3:15 in the afternoon. Now, it opened today and will conclude on the 25th of September. Net institutional investors drove the demand, with retail investors coming in a close second. The NBFC is aiming to raise over 150 crores from the IPO. Moving on, the market regulator SEBI has published an updated study which shows that 93% of individual traders incurred losses in equity F&O between the FY22 and FY24. Now, aggregate losses exceeded 1.8 lakh crore rupees over 3 years. And Charu is joining us with more details. Hi, Charu. Take us through the details that you're picking up on this. The big news point, of course, that's coming in seems to suggest that 93% of individual traders actually incurred losses.
Yes, so as per the market regulator's recent report, 9 out of 10 individual F&O traders faced losses, and losses per trader is around rupees 2 lakh each. And the top losers are the people who are getting the most amount of losses. Around 3.5% of these traders average losses of about rupees 28 lakh. Another interesting point here is to know that only 1 out of 10 traders got profits of over rupees 1 lakh after the costs that are to be deducted. Another very interesting thing is that the young traders who are under the age group of 30 increased from 31% in 2023 to around 43% in 2024, and 75% of these young traders or traders in general saw that their annual income is only below rupees 5 lakh. And another important factor here is that even after facing losses, 75% of these traders continued with their trading practices.
All right, Charu, thank you very much for joining us with those details. Moving on now, NDTV Profit has been giving you a comprehensive coverage of the JPMorgan Annual Summit. We spoke to a host of personalities across JPMorgan, and here's what the CEO of JPMorgan's APAC region, George Lennart, had to say.
To start with China, I think obviously there's a lot of sort of headlines on China, but we can't forget the journey they've been on. In 2000, they were 4% of global GDP. They made up about 14% of APEC's GDP. Today, they're 20% of the world's GDP, and they're more than half of Asia's GDP. So they've had their growth spurt. But it's clear that when you are so big, to sustain that growth is difficult. And also the drivers of China's growth will have to change. It was a lot about manufacturing and export, then about the sort of e-commerce industry, and the question is what's going to be the next decade for China, what's going to drive its growth. So China, I think, will continue to be a big driver of absolute growth, but at a slower rate than before.
All right, now, according to a CLSA report, urban Indians are skipping the traditional retail and FMCG buys and are going all in for experiences and travel. NDTV Profit's Mahima joins in with the details of the change in consumption trends.
CLSA has come out with a very interesting note that tells us about how urban consumption trends are taking place, and what they're saying is that Zomato is the best way to play this theme. Now we all saw that how Coldplay tickets got sold out in minutes, and there were there was a queue of roughly 1 lakh people who were ahead for a ticket queue, which had a price band of roughly $50 to 400. Now in terms of Daljit's concert also, the tickets were around 250,000 tickets were sold out, and this was priced at roughly $90. So interesting things happening in that space. In fact, the same thing happened with Dua Lipa concert as well as Bryan Adams concert as well. Now all of these 4 concerts combined saw ticket sales of over 3.5 billion to 4 billion rupees, and this is over 40% of incremental quarterly sales for QSR. So what they're saying is that consumption of older consumer companies might be a misleading indicator when we try to track trends in the urban consumption space. Also, what they've said is that events, traveling, eating out, luxury and premium goods, cosmetics, consumer appliances are emerging trends and are the areas that are preferred by today's youth. And what they're also saying is that QSR is struggling, but Zomato and Swiggy food delivery is clearly chugging along. Now, if you see the gross order value for Zomato in the delivery business, which is a smaller part as compared to the delivery business, however, it did see an uptick of 25%, which is, whereas QSRs have been showing growth trends in just single digits. In terms of Zomato's dine-out business also, it did see a significant uptick, and this was more than double as compared to Q1 FY24. Now, in terms of data points from companies like Nykaa, Make My Trip and Trend also suggest that consumption remains different from past, where FMCG and QSRs were seen as bellwethers. Now, in Q1 FY25, Nykaa saw beauty GMV growth of roughly 28%, Make My Trip saw 29% growth, and Trend saw like-for-like growth of 22%, which is much faster than growth of QSRs, which is around 8%. So lastly, what they're saying is that trends in terms of consumption when it comes to the urban population are very different, and overall FMCG and QSRs cannot be the indicators for this, and Zomato is very well placed to tap this increasing demand for consumer experiences, and of course they've maintained the target price of 353 overall.
All right, Mahima, very interesting points being made there. Thank you for joining us. Now, on to an NDTV Profit exclusive now. And sources tell your channel that the government will likely form a selection panel for the new internship scheme soon. And Shrimi Chaudhary is joining in with exclusive details of what this could entail.
Yeah, so this MCA-led panel, the selection panel, which is expected to be formed soon, is going to shortlist the internship application based on the eligibility criteria. What we are also picking up from our sources is that they are going to look into each application and accordingly forward it to the respective companies. Remember, the budget has announced PM internship program to cater at least 10 million unemployed youth who are not from the elite institutions like IIT and IIMs. This is MCA, which is the nodal ministry who is going to put out the final guidelines by the October end, will specify the eligibility criteria and the number of vacancy and how many companies are going to sort of offer these internship program. All those details will be mentioned by MCA by the end of next month. What we are also picking up from our sources at that, since it's a voluntary program, so the companies are not obliged to absorb each and every application which are coming from this panel. However, if you see the government data, since they are going by the CSR spend, there are some top 10 companies including HDFC, TCS, who are the top CSR spender, and they may absorb these internship application and take those interns on board.
All right, Shrimi, thank you for that. Now, the Union Labour Ministry has sought information from state officials on the recent death of an EY employee. The Labour Minister, Mansukh Mandavia, is awaiting the report, expecting it in the next 7 to 10 days now, after which appropriate government action is likely to be taken. While speaking about the tragic death of the former EY employee who apparently succumbed to work pressure, the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman at an event in Chennai called out for colleagues and universities to provide stress management lessons to the students. She further emphasized that people can gain the strength to handle pressure by achieving divinity. Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended a high-profile roundtable with top American technology CEOs focusing on innovation, collaboration, and India's growing tech. Now, this roundtable was part of the PM Modi's 3-day visit to the United States. Google CEO Sundar Pichai and NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, who showed positive stance towards boosting India's tech sector.
The Prime Minister has been focused on transforming India with his Digital India vision. He pushed us to continue making in India, designing in India. We are proud to now make our Pixel phones manufactured in India. He is really thinking about how AI can transform India in a way that benefits the people of India. He challenged us to think about applications in healthcare, education, agriculture, and he's also thinking about the infrastructure of India, be it data centers, power, energy, and investing to make sure India can transition. And we are proud to be partnering with India. We are robustly investing in AI in India.
I've enjoyed so many meetings with Prime Minister. He's such an incredible student. And every time I see him, he wants to learn about technology, artificial intelligence, the potential and opportunity for India, the impact on India's society and industry. And so I was delighted to be here to talk about it. India, as you know, is also home of some of the world's greatest computer scientists. So this is a great opportunity. Artificial intelligence is also a new industry, a new manufacturing industry that's very important. And so I'm looking forward to partnering with India in a very deep way to make that possible.
All right, now the Aam Aadmi Party leader Atishi, I beg your pardon, officially took over as the 8th Chief Minister of Delhi. Atishi placed an empty chair next to her in a symbolic gesture towards the party chief and former Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. Now, she even compared herself to Bharat from Ramayana, who had ruled in Lord Ram's absence by placing his sandals on the throne. She stated that the chair will remain vacant for Arvind Kejriwal until the February 2025 elections, when Kejriwal will become Delhi's elected official again. Now, the digital payment fraud in India has jumped a staggering 5-fold to 1,457 crore rupees in the financial year that ended in March 2024. Now, this is according to the RBI's annual report from 3 months ago. The alarming rise comes at the same time as India is rapidly becoming a digital payments powerhouse, something that has also created greater financial inclusion for millions across the country. Now, MasterCard has come up with a solution for greater safety thanks to AI.
MasterCard and PayU have announced a strategic collaboration to deploy Brighterion AI solutions within PayU's payment business in India. The collaboration is aimed at cutting fraud losses, enriching customer experiences, and attracting more merchants through artificial intelligence. The collaboration is significant in that it will enable real-time fraud risk assessment at both transaction and merchant levels for PayU. With the same goal of customer safety in mind, the Global FinTech Fest saw the unveiling of MasterCard ID Theft Protection, which is aimed at providing proactive monitoring and resolution of identity theft threats from MasterCard cardholders.
Okay, so MasterCard Identity Theft Protection is a B2B2C monitoring solution for any data breach incidents on PII information. And what we do essentially is when we monitor the deep and the dark web, we are able to identify if there's any breach incident for an individual. And also what we do is we alert the individual and they are able to take a resolution also and mitigate the incident very timely so that they are safeguarding all their identities. So that's what the solution is all about.
Well, did you know that there are more than 300 sign languages in use around the world? Sign language is not just a communication tool, it is also a complete language with its own grammar, syntax, and cultural nuances. It is to raise precisely these kind of awareness around sign language that today, the 23rd of September, is celebrated as International Day of Sign Languages. Now, as part of the Samarth by Hyundai initiative, in partnership with NDTV, we take a look at how sign language opens up new worlds for those who cannot hear.
This is a daily reality for Nandakishore, A condition that is mostly invisible, deafness is a communication disability which lakhs of people like Nandakishore live within our country. Being deaf and the resultant lack of communication can have a profound impact on every aspect of one's life. This was a struggle Nandakishore endured for years before reaching where he is now.
बचपन से बड़े होते तक 17 इयर्स तक कोई भी साइन लैंग्वेज में पढ़ाने वाला नहीं मिला। जब यहाँ NDS में आया, जब यहाँ पे देखा कि टीचर साइन लैंग्वेज में पढ़ाते हैं, इंग्लिश, ISL, रिटेल, हॉस्पिटैलिटी, बहुत सारे कोर्सेज जब ये साइन लैंग्वेज में पढ़ाते हैं तो मैं समझ पाया, मैं कनेक्ट कर पाया, मैं ग्रो किया।
Every year, hundreds of students are trained here at the Noida Deaf Society, enabling them to lead self-reliant lives just like Nandakishore. Learning sign language has opened up new worlds and possibilities for them.
It only started with one single accessible point, which is language. So there wasn't anything hugely different that we did. We just gave accessible language to our deaf children, and through that learning and education. And through that education, they've been able to expand their lives, open up their minds to holistic growth as human beings with a common language. They're able to get jobs.
In addition to opening up access to fundamental needs such as education, healthcare, and employment, teaching sign language to children early also leads to better cognitive skills, faster speech development, improved literacy and reading skills, self-confidence, and improved mental health.
बहुत बदलाव आया है बच्चों में, पढ़ने लिखने में भी होशियार हैं, जो बात हम लोग समझाते हैं वो समझता भी है।
According to the World Health Organization, India has approximately 63 million people suffering from significant auditory impairment. The deaf community and advocates have been pushing for the Indian Sign Language or ISL to be recognized as the 23rd official language of the country.
Huge. If it becomes the 23rd official language, can you imagine? From the families first, the social reform will take place. The shame towards Indian Sign Language from family members, that will go. Knowledge will be increased. Corporates will be higher because now it's official. Not only that, access to hospitals, police stations, schools, colleges.
While the deaf community waits for that dream to become a reality, there are still things we could all be doing to create greater inclusivity for those who are deaf or hard of hearing.
जैसे जगहों पे, अलग अलग जगहों पे साइन लैंग्वेज से रिलेटेड पिक्चर्स लगाना, डॉक्टर के, पुलिस स्टेशन के जगहों पे साइन लैंग्वेज से रिलेटेड पिक्चर्स लगे हों, तो इसे देखकर डॉक्टर के वहाँ पे पुलिस स्टेशन में समझना बहुत इजी रहेगा, कम्युनिकेट करना इजी रहेगा और एक्सेसिबिलिटी रहेगी, फोटोज से देखना।
Indian Sign Language is the linguistic identity of those in India who are deaf or hard of hearing. Creating an ecosystem where it can flourish will be a life-changing catalyst for the community. They may live in silence, but their silence has a voice, and that voice is the Indian Sign Language.
Well, in fact, that's all we have time for right now on this edition of Profit 360. Thank you for joining us, but do stay with NDTV Profit for more news.